Donald Trump has made the news. Well, at this point, Donald Trump is the news, at least if you're watching CNN, ABC, MSNBC, or any of those other mainstream media outlets. He is all they talk about. Trump tweeted out a GIF that seems to have caused hysteria, again, and people claim that he is mentally unfit to be president, again, bringing up the 25th Amendment. Propagandist outlets that consider themselves news claim that he was normalizing violence against journalists. ABC's Anna Navarro claimed that Trump is going to get somebody killed in the media. Hot Air reports that Trump is normalizing violence against journalists. Let's be real, these people saying that they're journalists are actually propagandists, or yellow journalists, or muckrakers. Far worse than the people that they claim of doing the same thing. Ironically, no one that is claiming that there is a normalization of violence against journalists are actual journalists. Here's a short clip from a video done by former Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
I know that this is a time of great fear and uncertainty for so many people. I know it's a time of concern for people who see our rights being assailed, being trampled on, and even being rolled back. I know that this is difficult, but I remind you that this has never been easy. We have always had to work to move this country forward to achieve the great ideals of our founding fathers. And it has been people, individuals who have banded together, ordinary people who simply saw what needed to be done and came together and supported those ideals, who have made the difference. They've marched, they've bled. Yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is. We have done this before, we can do this again.
So we have Loretta Lynch calling for blood in the streets. We have a modern-day adaptation of William Shakespeare's Caesar as an excuse to pretend to murder the president, and there was an actual attempt by a Bernie Sanders supporter to kill as many Republicans as he could. The man who shot Steve Scalise was found with a list of additional names, which implies that he was planning on mass murdering members of a political party. These people claim to be victimized by this GIF when they actually spin sensationalized yellow journalism in order to tear at people's emotions. The mainstream media has been stoking the fire, claiming abuse when something mildly aggressive comes from the right, and claiming heroism when they attack those they disagree with. They claim this as an attack on free press, using the Anita Sarkeesian tactic of painting all criticism of them as harassment. When the Trump Caesar play happened, people who criticized how tasteless the play was were all called snowflakes, despite no actual offense existing. Quick note to those on the left that use the term snowflake. Please use the word properly. If I critique something, it is different than saying this offends me and it needs to be stopped because I don't like it. They were so quick to defend the First Amendment when they were doing a mock assassination of a sitting president, yet it is considered hate speech to talk poorly of Islam or feminism. This play actually did encourage and normalize violence, but because it was against someone they despise, their morality doesn't come into play. Take, for example, Kathy Griffin, failing D-list celebrity, who posed ISIS-style with a severed Trump head. Of course, this was a way of earning some lefty cred, but at the end of things, she claims that she was victimized, she was harassed by the Trump family, even though, as far as I know, she was not actually contacted by any member of the Trump family. Yet, she played the victim as soon as she was given the opportunity, despite the fact that no one put a gun to her head and made her pose with a fake decapitated head of a sitting U.S. president. People are quick to bring up the fact that Ted Nugent hung up an effigy of Obama on his property and shot at it. I think there is a big difference between an individual deciding to do something on his own private property as opposed to a publication pushing a photo op with Kathy Griffin posing with a decapitated head. I think they are maybe similar, but they are definitely in a different league. When Republican Representative Steve Scalise was shot, Republicans were blamed, claiming that they created an atmosphere of vitriol and hatred. It is important to note that a New York Times article from April, called A Who's Who List of Agencies Guarding the Powerful, the article in question gave information on the level of security of the baseball game, as well as what the bodyguards would be driving and how they would be dressed. Some people interpreted this as a subtle assistance in the shooting. The media blamed the literal victim of a shooting and attempted assassination and called Steve Scalise a white supremacist with little or no supporting evidence. While he was on the verge of death, social media was filled with people claiming that he deserved to die because he was against Obamacare, or that he was a KKK sympathizer, or a suspected white supremacist. You see these accusations thrown around so often that one just assumes that they're acting histrionic. They don't care about violence against anyone except for their allies. They have no values. Their standard exists only as a rod to beat their opposition with, holding one side to two standards and themselves to none. The ends justify the means, they say. If you seriously think that this tweet normalizes violence against journalism, then I must ask you what you thought of Trump Caesar. Out of all of the people who have been attacked for their political beliefs in the past year, how many of them were liberal? The left has called people Nazis and fascists, with propagandist organizations like CNN asking people to fight fascism by any means necessary. Constant accusations of hatred and racism have justified potential shooters to carry out attacks against those that they decide are Nazis or alt-right. Have we seen anyone ask them to stop calling for violence? Yeah. And have they stopped? No. What they have done is victim blame people like Steve Scalise and claim that this is a result of the right stirring up hatred. They have it backwards. Bring up footage of a rally or a protest and check to see who's committing the violence and who gets hurt, who is causing property damage. I have yet to see someone masked, wearing a MAGA hat, kicking someone while they are down or destroying private or public property. In conclusion, no media, Trump is not inciting violence against your propagandist globalist writers. Those writers are inciting violence against him. They are dividing the nation even more than Obama did with his race-baiting tactics while he was president. Alinsky would be proud. When Bush was president, do you think black people felt so worthless that they had to chant that their lives mattered in the streets? The racial division accelerated under Obama, as a dividing of America was the entire point of his presidency, at least in my opinion. If you were to ask me, the left has been planning a civil war for years so that they can have an opportunity to rewrite the Constitution and rewrite history. I'm not going to allow this to happen as long as I'm sitting here. I'm not going to let these Marxists win. I'll go ahead and end this video with two short clips. The first one being a video I showed in yesterday's video featuring John Podesta, and the other one featuring Donald Trump. I love this Keith Olbermann clip because it is proof to me that I have higher standards as a journalist, and I don't consider myself a journalist, but even that being the case, I seem to have higher standards than Keith Olbermann does, a person who was a professional. It's kind of soothing down in my soul. But we'll take a look at that, and then the next clip features President Donald Trump, and I feel like it's a pretty relevant statement that he makes. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you all later.
We are at war with Russia, or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup, so far a bloodless coup, engineered by Russia with, at best, the traitorous indifference of the Republican Party and Donald John Trump, a man who, to borrow a phrase from another December long ago, will live in infamy. In 5 weeks' time, unless desperate measures are taken, we will hand over the government to a man who lost the popular vote by more than Woodrow Wilson or Jimmy Carter won it, a man whom the Russians wanted to run our country for them, a man whom the Russians got to run our country for them, a man for whom the Russians interfered with our elections, which if we did it to another country would be described as an act of war.
Alright, I gotta chime in for just a second. The CIA does interfere with elections of other countries and has been for decades, so it wouldn't be considered an act of war. It happens all the fucking time.
And in this country, we have conceded defeat. Some experts, John Kasich's strategist, John Weaver for one, have compared this to Pearl Harbor.
This is nothing like Pearl Harbor. People actually died at Pearl Harbor, you asshole. Keith Olbermann, you are an actual piece of shit.
We won and they lost. The fact is, the press has destroyed themselves because they went too far. Instead of being subtle and smart, they used a hatchet. And the people saw it right from the beginning.